Hi, Cambly Family. It's teacher Kelsey. So I thought today I'd take the time to make my first YouTube video. I know I've been saying I would do this for a while, so here it is. um, so for my first video, I thought I would go ahead and take the time to answer a lot of frequently asked questions I get from you guys, from both parents and my students. I'll do a part two on another set of questions if you guys have more. Um, but for today, I figured this will be a great way for you guys to access answers, come back to them instead of having to scroll through the messages. You'll have a video to come back to. Um, so, yeah, let's get started. First question I get a lot is, what happens if my child is late to class? So, when a child is late to class, when a student is late to class, oftentimes the a lot of tutors, Cambly tutors, will send out a message. I will do this sometimes, but usually if I'm also in another class, so I don't usually have time to send a message to the parent about their child being late. So if your child is late to class and I don't send you a message, you can send one to me, or if you're unable to do so, as long as the child is under 10 minutes late, I'm going to answer. Now, if your child is more than 10 minutes late, then usually, unless you've messaged me ahead of time saying that your child will be 10 minutes late, I'm either in another class already, or Cambly often will assign tutors, or we get what's called a priority hour. And during that priority hour, we get the opportunity to take other calls if our class is late or doesn't show up. So if your student is more than 10 minutes late, chances are I'm in another class, and I'm unable to answer if your child calls, or if you call more than 10 minutes late. So if this is the case, I don't get upset about late classes and no shows. I feel like for the most part, as my regular students, you guys are pretty good about being on time and showing up for classes. So, and I understand, I have my own children, so I know how difficult it is to always be on time, always show up, and life is just really unpredictable with small children. So I understand. I don't really get upset about no shows and late classes. But what happens if I am late to class? It does happen, and usually this happens if my previous class was late or had technical difficulties and I had to finish a last slide or explaining something and saying goodbye. I try not to be more than 4 minutes late. If I am going to be more than 4 minutes late for any reason at all, I try to send a message if at all possible. Sometimes I'm late for my own technical difficulties, or there could be an issue with Cambly connecting. And if this is also the case, I do my best to send messages and make apologies. So if it does happen, I'm sorry. Send me a message and we can talk about it. But what happens if you're unable to show up for a class at all? Not just late, but you can't show up for the class. You're unable to cancel the class ahead of time. If you don't show up for the class, don't feel too bad about it. I do still get paid a certain percentage of the class if you don't show up, so don't feel bad for me. But your student, that lesson will not be skipped, so you don't have to also worry for your child. The lesson that they missed is not skipped, so they can still go and do the next lesson. And if they're late, if they don't show, I don't get upset. I might send you a message to see if everything's okay, especially if more than one class has been missed in a row. I do have a rule for my new students. For my newer students, I don't allow more than 3 missed classes in a row. it sets a pattern, I think. So if you're a newer student of mine, try not to miss more than 3 consecutive classes without sending me a message. With my more regular students, if you miss a few classes in a row or you miss a few classes that month, I will probably just send you a message to see if everything's okay. I feel like we've established a relationship, and I've established a relationship with your child as their tutor. I'm not gonna cut them off, end a student-teacher relationship like that, just because of a few missed classes. So don't worry. But if everything's okay, send me a message, let me know, because I sometimes worry about my students, especially, well, you know. So, what happens if I don't show up to class? It, like I said before, it does happen. If it does happen, then usually I send a message or I will cancel the class ahead of time. There are some cases where if my family has gotten sick, or if there's a power outage, or if we're having bad weather, I might be unable to cancel the class, or I might not be able to show up for the class. So if that does happen, I apologize. Message me and we'll reschedule for a time that works for both of us. If we're unable to reschedule, I apologize. It doesn't happen often, I promise. Another question I get is, what are my classroom rules? Well, I don't have many. I don't mind when parents sit in on the class. I do sometimes ask that you allow the student a chance to correct themselves. You don't have to correct everything they say if you're sitting in on the class. Give me a chance to correct them, or give them a chance to correct themselves. Also, I might not correct everything, because if we're focusing on a certain topic or a certain part of grammar, I want them to focus more on what we're going over than the smaller mistakes. I don't want them to feel discouraged by having to repeat everything 6 or 7 times. I don't want to create an aversion or a hatred for learning English. So I try to make things fun, try to keep it light. If you can work with me to do that in the class, that would be great. Also, I don't mind food and snacks and drinks in the classroom. I think it helps to keep children focused and present, to have something in their hands. So if you notice your child is not staying seated, or is just kind of super high energy, it might help to give them like a small snack in a cup, or a drink, or some Play-Doh or something for them to sit with and mash around at the table while we have a class together. It might not seem like they're paying attention, but kids are observing way more than you would think. So another question I get is, how young do I start teaching? So my youngest students have been about 3 years old. But I've also had some 3-year-old children that have not been ready for Cambly. So it really depends on the child. Every child is different. I myself wouldn't put my own children at my own daughter, who's 3, in Cambly. She doesn't have the patience or the focus for it. I sit down with her myself and we do some things, but I would never put her on a platform like this, just because she is not ready for it. But some 3-year-olds are, so it really just depends on your child. If you think your child is ready and you want to try it, go for it. So I typically teach children ages 3 to 18. I do have some adult students on regular Cambly, so if you yourself as a parent want to go on to regular Cambly and find me, feel free. I would love to have classes and establish a relationship with you as a parent as well. I consider your children to be part of my family, so if you want to also be a part of that, please find me. Or if you want to sit in on the classes with your child, that's more than welcome. Another question I get is how much I get paid. Normally this would probably be a bit of a personal question, but because it's public, it's out there, you can find it if you search for it. I don't mind sharing it. So I get paid about $12 an hour, which is great for me and where I live. You guys know that I live in Mexico, so it's a really great wage for where I live. Beyond great, actually. And like I said before, I get paid if you don't show up for the class, so it's not like you are taking my or messing up, or I don't know how to explain. You're not ruining my day by not showing up to class. I don't get paid as much as I would if we had the full class together, because I do get paid by the minute, but I'm guaranteed a certain amount if you don't show up for the class. If you cancel the class, then I don't get paid for it, but you should cancel the class if you can't make it. If you can, try to cancel it within 6 hours. If you know you might not be able to make it, or you're not going to make it. But like I said, it's not always possible. So if it doesn't happen, then don't worry. So I get paid around, I think 12 cents a minute. I can't remember. It comes out to be about $12 an hour. So that's pretty great for me. I have no complaints. And I get to work from home, so it's a win-win for me. Another question I get is, can my children share an account? For this, I would say definitely, but together. I have some children who share an account, and they live in different homes, and they switch back and forth between, one child will do one lesson, and then in the next house, the next lesson, the child will do a lesson, and they don't do them together. And this is kind of problematic because the lessons are consecutive, and what you learn from one lesson is carried into the next. And oftentimes they're told in a story kind of setting. So really, they should be done together if possible. I don't recommend sharing an account if your children are not in the same household, or if their cousins not doing the lessons together, because then one child is missing something crucial from the previous lesson, and so on. It just is they're not learning as effectively as they should, and it can be quite confusing for them. Especially when we do like the reviews and the recaps, they're missing a bunch of information. But I do recommend that siblings, especially if they're close together in level, sit together for a lesson. It encourages teamwork. It encourages healthy competition to remember and impress each other and do better than the other. It's a really healthy sort of competitive relationship they create in the classroom. Also, they have fun and they joke around together, and they just kind of keep the energy high for each other, and that's a really good thing. They help each other out. So siblings together, as long as you feel like they would do well together in a classroom, I say go for it. I don't mind. I don't know if it goes against Cambly policy. I don't think so. I've had several students take classes together, siblings, so I wouldn't see it as a problem. Now, if they're two completely different levels, I don't know if I would recommend that. Maybe if one is at a really good comprehension level and the other is maybe beginning, then the older or more experienced child can help the younger child learn. I've had older siblings help their younger siblings who are much smaller. But then that's kind of like the parent also sitting in the class. So I don't really take it as teaching the older child. I focus more on the younger child. Another question I get is, can I send you my contact information, my email, my Facebook, my social media? And the answer is no. It goes against Cambly policy for me to contact you outside of Cambly. And this is probably because they don't want me to take you away from Cambly for myself. And I understand that. It's business. I have had a few parents who have found me. They're on their own. I had one parent find me recently whose child could no longer do the Cambly Kids because um, it wasn't provided in their country anymore. They couldn't use Cambly Kids in their country anymore because of laws or something like that. And she found me on social media and said hello. I wouldn't teach outside of Cambly. Right at the moment, I don't teach outside of Cambly because I really like just being able to keep my schedule for Cambly. I don't have time outside of my Cambly schedule to teach other students in another way. Also, I don't have time to create my own material, so I don't usually. I wouldn't teach outside of Cambly, especially at the moment. I don't know if that will change in the future, but as for now, I only teach on Cambly, Cambly Kids, and regular Cambly. If it does happen and your child can no longer use Cambly, then I would recommend signing them up for regular Cambly and finding me. A lot of regular Cambly tutors don't want to teach children, so you have to make sure to read their information to see if it's something that they do. I do. So if you have a child and want to put them on regular Cambly, you can find me. Which brings me to the next question. Can I use regular Cambly? And the answer is yes, you can. Your child can use regular Cambly if they have conversational English, if their English is conversational. I wouldn't recommend a child with non-conversational English or with very low comprehension or vocabulary or anything like that. I wouldn't recommend them using regular Cambly. There's no material, there's nothing for the tutors to go off of. And so it would just be very difficult and frustrating for the child and the tutor to try and have a class. The lesson slides on regular Cambly are more advanced and they're catered to older adults and ask a lot of questions in regards to marriage and family and laws and politics, television, things like that normal children wouldn't understand or wouldn't find interesting. So I don't recommend regular Cambly for most children. A lot of my students have finished Cambly Kids. They went through all of the course material once or twice, and then graduated, and then went to regular Cambly, and that's, I think, perfectly acceptable, and I think it's even recommended by Cambly to do so. Last question I'll answer for today is how can I change my child's course level? I, as the tutor, cannot do this. I can recommend a course to you. I can even try to give your child a sample of a course that I think might be better for them to see if it works out. But you have to do that. And you can do that by contacting Cambly student support from the help page. I might do an extra lesson on this with more information on how to do this. But basically, you're just going to go to the top of the home page, click on the question mark button, and then send in a ticket to Cambly student support, letting them know you want to change the course material and which course you want to change to. You can ask me, like I said, for a recommendation on which course to use. So, or you can look at the course material and what it's about from the help page as well, and what you think or want your child to work on. But yeah, for the most part, I think those are the most frequent questions that I get. So if you guys have any other questions, if I'm missing something or didn't answer something you're looking for, send me a message on Cambly or post a question below and I will answer it in my next video. Hopefully I'll be making more of these videos with updates and different information regarding English and Cambly. Not all of them will be about Cambly. I do want to do some English learning lessons as well. Also maybe some more personal videos on myself, and so you guys can get to know me a little bit better, what my life is about. We'll see what happens with this. I probably won't post as often as I want to, but here's the first video, so here's hoping there will be more. Yeah, so I guess I'll leave it here. Post any ideas you guys have below on videos you'd like to see, and I will see you in class. Bye everyone!